Hello, and welcome to Planning Center University. My name is Daniel, and I work on the team with a bunch of great people who make Planning Center People, which is our totally free church management database for you to keep track of the details of the people in your church and collaborate with your teammates to help to prevent anybody in your church from falling through the cracks. So for the next 45 minutes or so, give or take, we're going to be talking about some of the key features in here at a nice high level, so that at the end of it, you will have some ideas kicking around your head on how you can start using Planning Center in your ministry today. This video is being recorded. It will be available later at planningcenter.com/university. It might be right here at the bottom of the screen, maybe. Planningcenter.com/university. So if you want to share that with somebody on your team later, or come back and watch a section that you missed, you can do that. So we've got a lot to cover today, including some brand new stuff that's never been seen in a Planning Center University before. The world may be on lockdown, but our team has been working away from home, making all kinds of new stuff for you. So let's jump right in, okay? So I'm going to dive right into Planning Center People. And this is it. When you first open up the app, this is what you're going to see. This is our dashboard. So from the dashboard, you get some high-level demographic info about your church. Just kind of a breakdown of genders and membership statuses. If you're a multi-campus church, some campus information's here. It's just intended to be sort of high-level informational. And also there's some jumping off points here for some common actions. All of these common actions are going to make a lot more sense as we go on. So we're going to start with the basics of Planning Center People. And in an app called Planning Center People, you can imagine the basic fundamental building block would be a person. You're right. Good job. It's a person. So we're going to click on the People tab, and this is our list of people. This is just kind of a way to get a quick overview of who's in your church. You could peruse this. There's some quick filters here, so if you need a quick number, like how many people are members in our church, you could add a quick filter here for members, 70 people. You can also search for people here. So I'm gonna search for Joe. We're gonna spend some time looking at Joe Smith's profile today. So let's get some details about Mr. Joe Smith here. Okay. So here's Joe's profile. I'd come to Joe's profile if I need to know some specific details about Joe, or I want to save some specific details about Joe for other people on my team to have later. So like his birthday, his phone number, his address, marital status, those sorts of things. Those are going to live here on his profile. And the information here in Planning Center People, that gets synced out to all of our other apps. So if you update his phone number here, it's updated in all the other apps as well. It's all kept in sync. There's at least four ways that you would get a new profile into Planning Center. The first way would be manually. So if you just have one profile, back on that last page we were just at, you click Add Person, type in their name, phone number, etc., hit Save. Ta-da, you got a new person. Joe, so that's a good way if you just have, a couple profiles you need to add right now. You could, Joe could add himself to your directory, or not your directory, I'm sorry, your database. So if Joe were to use one of our apps that has a congregant-facing side, so like if he were to go and give online, and you've never seen Joe before, but he gave a gift, it would generate a new profile for Joe. A lot of profiles are also going to come from third-party integrations. We have a ton of third parties who have built against what's called an API, which is the tools that different apps use to talk to each other. So for example, if your church is using Clearstream for text messaging, Joe might do the keyword feature there and end up creating a profile, and Clearstream will use the API and create a new profile for Joe inside your Planning Center database. To get a list of all of those integrations, you can check out planningcenter.com/integrations, and you can see everything we do there. Um, and lastly, this is the most common when you're getting started, is via what's called a CSV import. So pretty much any database or like Excel spreadsheet, something like that, you can export into a file type called a CSV. And that's just a standard file type that lets you take big chunks of data and move them from one system to another. So I'm not going to show you how to walk through, I'm not going to walk you through a CSV import. It's a little bit out of scope of what we're doing here today. But what I'm going to do is show you something even better. If you click on that question mark up there in the top right of the screen, you're going to get what is called our help desk. Our help desk has links to useful articles. It has a great search to find articles and a sort of a lifeline to our support team. So if you wanted to, you could, if you want to know how to import a CSV, just type in CSV. Oh, that was cool. Oh, there we go. Oops, I don't know what happened there. And it's going to take you to a list of search results for CSV files. Let me go back real quick. Oh, I know what I did. Opened in a new tab. My bad. So you could search for, CSV. Here we go. You can say how to import a CSV file. That's fine. But let's say you read that document. And that document, by the way, has a video and tons of screenshots, step-by-step details. And it makes importing a CSV super easy. We've spent a ton of time on our CSV importer. If you maybe are familiar with some other systems, you might have had to have somebody come into your church and spend a week messing around with all your data and getting things set up and blah, blah. We spent so much time on this, you can do it yourself. It's easy. But if you have a question, not just about CSVs, but anything, do not hesitate. Open a support ticket with our support team. Our team is really, really good. During regular business hours, they're going to get back to you under an hour, almost always. We even put our response time right here. Right now, their average response time is 18 minutes. And they're really good at the specific questions of like, hey, why is this thing broken? Or why isn't this doing the thing I thought it would do? Or, something along those lines. But they're also really good at sort of big picture, like, hey, what's the best practice? Should I approach this? How should I solve this problem? Should I go this way or that way? They're really good. They love helping customers, and they'll get back to you really quick. So please use this box. Talk to our team. We love hearing from you. Okay, so off of that tangent, back to Joe. Okay, this is Joe's profile. We're going to talk through just sort of the key features on this page. And before we do that, I want to help you understand permissions in Planning Center people a little bit. So what we're seeing here is Joe's profile. This is like an administrator view. So this is the view that you and your teammates will see for Joe. Joe is just a regular Joe at your church, regular congregant. He's never going to see this page. This isn't for him. This is for your admin team. If he were to maybe get on staff or become some kind of key volunteer, you could come to his profile, click on this gear, and add some permissions to him. So in Planning Center people, there are a few levels of permissions. Joe's a no access permission right now. He could be a viewer, which lets him log in to Planning Center people, see all of the people in it, but not make any changes. He could be an editor, which lets him also make changes. And then a manager, and that's like the top level permission inside this app. And what a manager can do is all the things that an editor can do, plus they can set some of the settings of the app. So as we go through the day, I'm going to point out some things that are like configuration options, and typically only managers have access to those configuration options. We've also been expanding our permissions model a little bit. So now you could say Joe is an editor, but I want him to be able to create forms or create workflows. You could add those permissions just for Joe specifically on his profile right here. But we're going to leave him where he is for now. Okay, so Joe is a member. He's gone through the membership class or whatever. He's the actual member class. If I wanted to change that, maybe he's a regular attender or something, I could do that here. Now, as I was talking about, mentioned a minute ago, if you are a manager, you'll have a button right here, and you can manage these membership types. So you can customize those to whatever your church, however you call your people. Next to that is a campus drop down. So Joe goes to our San Diego campus. If you are not a multi-site church, if you are a single-site church, you won't even see this drop down. We just sort of act like campuses aren't a thing because they aren't for you, so you don't need to worry about that. If you are a multi-site church and you don't see this drop down, that means you haven't set up campuses yet. And to do that, again, click on that help desk, search for campuses, and go to the help article there. It'll walk you through setting that up. Okay. Okay, so next little drop down over here is Joe's background check status. So let's say Joe just volunteered in children's ministry, and we have decided at our, this is Centerville Church is what this church is called here. Centerville Church, we want to make sure that all of our children's ministry volunteers are background checked before they get into a classroom with the children. So there's really two types of background checks inside Planning Center. Actually, let me step back a little bit. Background checks are integrated throughout all of Planning Center. So once, what you can do is you can say Joe can't be scheduled inside services for a children's ministry position until he has a clear background check on file. And you can also do that in check-ins. So when Joe goes to check in as a volunteer into a children's room, a warning can pop up. It's like, hey, Joe doesn't have a clear background check on file. So background checks are integrated throughout all the relevant places inside Planning Center. Let me show you how to get those in here. There's two ways. The first way would be a manual background check. So that's if you have old background checks from an old system that you need to bring over, or you're using a third party that doesn't have an integration with Planning Center. You would use a manual background check. But the much preferred, much easier way, what's going on here? My computer just died, that was weird, would be to use Checker. So Checker is a third party it's a company that just does background checks. They're huge. They do tons of background checks for all the big names. We've been working with them for probably 4-ish years. Our churches have done hundreds of thousands of background checks through Checker. And the way this works is I've got the Checker integration set up here. So I could say, I want to order the standard check for Joe. Hit next. It kind of gives you a little heads up what you're going to do. And if I hit initiate check, what's going to happen is Checker is going to send an email to Joe's email address and say, Joe, Centerville would like to run a background check on you. Is that okay? He can click OK, and that will take him to Checker's site where he can, he'll see all the necessary legal disclosures. He can provide the necessary consent and also give them a little bit of extra information, like they'll need a social security number. And what's great about using Checker for that is that you don't have to collect and hang on and destroy that social security number. Planning Center doesn't have to see that social security number. It's just all handled by Checker. Like I said, we've been using Checker for several years. Our churches have had great success with it. And just full disclosure, dude, what is going on with my computer? There we go. Weird. Full disclosure, we don't get a dime from Checker. We just really like them. So we don't have any profit shares or any kind of weird agreements like that with them. We just think they're the best. And so that's who we've chosen to integrate with. And I highly recommend you do. If you choose not to use Checker, use another provider. That's great too. But I really do recommend you are background checking somebody. Okay, enough about background checks. Let's move on. Down here, our social profiles section. So we are using a service that, or I should say Planning Center people uses a service that goes out and searches the internet and tries to correlate social media profiles with email addresses. It's not 100% success rate, but it does do pretty good of finding Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn profiles for anybody who has an email address associated with those profiles. What's really convenient about that feature, besides knowing Joe's Facebook page or his Twitter account, is that it also pulls in the photos off of those social media accounts. So if you don't have a photo for Joe, you could, but maybe you have this Twitter profile photo, you could click make profile photo right there, and that's going to update Joe's photo or add a new photo if you didn't already have one for him. And so that's a really convenient way to get some pictures of the people in your church. Okay, over here is Joe's household. So in Joe's house, uh, we've got his wife Jordan and his daughter Lana. Households are used besides just being a nice way to organize the people on this page, so you kind of know who's related to who. Households are used all over Planning Center to power a bunch of functionality. So, for example, in check-ins, when Joe goes and types in his phone number at the check-in station, only the people in his household will show up for Joe to check them in. In services, there are scheduling preferences. So if you want to, you could say Joe and Jordan prefer to serve, maybe they're ushers or teachers or something, they prefer to serve on the same weekend. Or you say they prefer to serve on opposite weekends. And when you have those preferences set up, when you use services as auto scheduler, it will honor all those preferences and try to do the best thing it can. So there's, of course, on both of those, both check-ins and services, there are relevant Planning Center universities for those. I recommend you go check those out if that piques your interest. But there's a brand new feature inside Planning Center People related to households. This literally launched, what's today, Thursday? Well, okay. As I'm recording this, it's Thursday. 2 days ago, we launched this feature, and that is a feature that's been asked for so many times over the years, and we finally got all the pieces in place to be able to get it out. And that's a church directory. So remember that paper directory that you pass around your church? Everybody shows up and they get their picture taken, and then it goes in there. And if nobody gets that directory unless you want them to have it, and also nobody gets in the directory unless they want to be in it. We have a digital version now, online. Putting the online in Planning Center online. Let me show you how this works a little bit. Really excited about this. It's only been out a couple days, but a lot of people are already really excited and talking about it. It's kind of fun seeing the customer reaction. So let me show you how it works. Down here is Joe's directory status. If you don't see this section, it's because you haven't yet enabled the directory. We know a lot of churches are never going to use a directory, so we're just going to hide that unless you've enabled it. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go to People, click on the little cog, and click on Directory. Okay, grab a sip of water here. Okay, this is the page where you're going to configure your directory settings and invite people to be part of the directory. So once you're here, you also may not see this section. You may see something that says go publish your directory. That means you need to go over to Planning Center Publishing and enable it. You can find out more about that in the publishing PCU coming soon. But it's super simple. Just click the buttons. It'll walk you right through it. So let's say we want to invite some people to our directory. There's a few ways that I can do that. I can just invite individuals. I could invite Christina, maybe Jefferson. Sure, why not? I could also invite a list. We're going to talk more about lists in a minute, but know that for now, if you know nothing, know that there are things called lists in Planning Center People that are groups of people. So here's a list of all my active church members. I'm going to select those 29 people. And then if I were to hit invite 31 people here, what would happen is it's going to send them an email that looks something like this. It has your church's name. It doesn't even say Planning Center anywhere. It invites them to the directory. Okay. When they click on this Join Directory button, it will take them to something that looks like this. So this is Church Center. This is the web side of Church Center. This is where all of your congregant-facing tools live. So it's got your church's logo up here, and you can, using our brand new app, again, 2 days old, called Publishing, you can configure your navigation and set this up the way you want it. So when Joe clicks on that join directory button in that email, he's going to be taken to a page that looks something like this. From here, he can choose exactly what data he wants to share. So he's going to share his name, his photo, maybe, let's just go everything for Joe. We could upload a photo of his household right here. And he's also going to put his wife and kids photos in there. Hit join directory, and bada bing. And here's Joe's household's profile listing. So it's got everything you need to know about Joe's profile. Joe could click on directory. I'm actually logged in as Joe. I forgot to mention that. Over here in Centerville, I'm logged in as Joe. So you click on directory, and this is everybody in the church who's chosen to be in the directory. If he wanted to, he could, let's search for someone. Search for me. Here's me. Here's my family. Sorta. It's almost my family. It's my pictures, not the names. But so there's somebody's family. So what's super cool about this is that because all the data inside Planning Center is kept up to date all the time. Like if Joe registers for an event or gives, those are all opportunities for his contact information to be kept up to date on a regular basis. And all that is synced out to this directory in real time. Joe has total control over it as well. So there's no more need to like print out a new book and hand it out every year or every couple of years. It's all digital. It's either on the website or in the Church Center app. And it's all accurate all the time. So sorry, Life Touch, I guess. Right? Okay. That is, let's go back to Joe's. That's all I'm going to show here on the Church Center side. Let's go back to Joe's profile. Before I do that, I want to show you, there's a link here. You can click right here, and that's going to take you to an already filtered view of all your people, of everybody who is already in the directory. So we have 21 people in the directory. I'm going to search for Joe. Let's go back to his profile. Okay, so now this little section probably makes a little more sense, right? So Joe can view the directory, and his profile is in the directory. So we could remove him, or click on that. That'll take us to his profile there. All right. So that covers all of the built-in basic fields for a profile page in People. But your church, like every church, is very unique. You've got your own bits of data that you want to collect. So we've talked about his birthday and his membership status, but what if you want to collect his baptism date or his occupation, or maybe what classes he's completed or something like that? You could track any kind of data you want in a custom field. So in this account here, we've got some custom tabs set up. Custom tabs hold custom fields. So I'm going to go to this membership info tab. Here we've got 3 bits of info that we track. We've got his testimony, his baptism date, membership covenant. So that means on everybody's profile, these questions are available to be answered. Let's go ahead and add a new profile or a new field here so I can show you how to set that up. So back to the People tab, back to the cog, click on Customize Fields. Okay, so we're going to click on this Membership Info tab and add a new field. And this one's going to be called Membership Class Completion Date. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of different types of data you could collect here. So you could collect text. This one's going to be a date. You could even upload a file. So if you have like maybe a PDF of a document that he signed or something like that, you could upload that and keep that on his profile. We're going to keep this one as a date. And now that's it. We want to go back to Joe's profile. I'm going to show you a little pro tip here. Ready? If you hit the / key, that will open up search. You type in Joe Smith. And we're back. Didn't have to use the mouse. Nice and fast. Okay, so we're back to Joe's profile. We can go back to that membership info tab, and now we see there is this new field here. If we wanted to add an answer to that, we click on Edit Answers, and that's where we would do that. Okay. Okay, so we've talked a lot about storing specific attributes about Joe, things that don't really change very often, like his birthday never changes, membership class completion date is going to change once. But what about things that happen on an ongoing basis, right? Joe isn't just a series of data bits, right? Joe's like an ongoing relationship that your pastoral staff and your church has with him. So how do we get our heads around any of that relationship inside Planning Center people. Let me show you one way, or a couple ways here on this page. Click on his activity feed. This is going to show us everything that's happened to Joe's, or everything that Joe has done in our church through all of our Planning Center apps on a timeline. So I can see here, I can see that his profile was edited by me yesterday. So I can see that I changed his email address from this to that. We can see he attended small group via Zoom, of course, right? We can see he checked his kids in, or no, he checked into the men's Bible study. So this page pulls in data from all of our apps. A couple things to know about it is that it won't show you any data that you don't have access to anyways. So if you are not an admin in groups, you won't see any groups admin or any groups information. Also, there's these filters over here, so we could turn off activity from different applications. And by default, we always hide giving activity on this. You can show it. We've chosen to hide it by default just because it feels a little extra sensitive, but you can add that if you are a giving admin. And even then, we just show you that he did donate to the Costa Rica mission trip. But if you want the full details of that donation or any of the activity items, you click on this guy and that little icon will take you to that application, that actual activities, and get all the details. Okay, so that's one way that you can track sort of ongoing relational activity with Joe. Another way is via notes. So notes are the kind of thing you can add a little information to him, to his profile on an ongoing basis. Best example of that are prayer requests, right? Joe might submit a prayer request every week or every month. So we've built a lot of cool tools around prayer requests. I want to show you how this works. So here's Joe's profile, notes. We're going to add a new note, okay? This one is a prayer request. And we're going to say, Joe is asking for prayer on safe travels on his business trip, okay? I'm going to save that. Okay, so now there's this prayer request on Joe's profile. Neat, right? That's a good start. But if you have, I think this church has 500 people in its database, and maybe you get 15, 20 prayer requests a week. How does anybody know about those, right? You can't just like scroll through everybody's profile and try to find the prayer request. We've built a lot of tools to help surface those and to make it real obvious. So I'm going to start by managing these note categories. Okay, so these are all customizable. Remember we had general, counseling, prayer request, serving interest. I'm going to manage those note categories. And this is going to take me to the settings for each note category. So here at the top is our visibility settings. So first, you can say these are the only people that I want to have access to this note category. So in this example, we have all viewers and above. But if I, which is viewers, editors, and managers, right? Basically anybody who's an admin inside Planning Center people. But if I wanted to limit that, I could say just these 3 people, or I could say only the editors, or only a specific person. You could add, you could add somebody. So now only those people even have access to see that data inside Planning Center to start with. But the really cool way to share these prayer requests with your prayer team would be via notifications. So down here is our notifications list. These are all the people on our prayer team. What you can do with that is, or what this will do is every morning, all the people on this list are going to get an email with all of the new prayer requests that happened yesterday. So that little email, it has all the data in it. They don't have to log in anywhere. It's mobile friendly. So they've always got those prayer requests everywhere. It's a perfect way to disseminate all those prayer requests to your team. Another place to get that would be if we click on our dashboards tab, there's this tab for profile notes. Okay, and this is all of our profile notes across all of your profiles. So we can filter this down to say prayer requests. We could say just the prayer requests in the last 30 days. And then from here, you could either export it as a CSV and take that into Excel and do whatever you want to do with it. We also have a really nice print-friendly view that you could take to like a staff meeting or something like that and use it there. So that's how you take prayer requests in Planning Center, and there's a lot of tools there to help you care for your people. Okay. So we spent all of our time so far, I feel like I'm talking slow, maybe too much time, talking about specific people. We've been talking about Joe a lot, right? But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how you and your team can collaborate to help care for people. We're going to talk about a tool called workflows. Oops. And what workflows are a tool for helping you get the people through the processes in your church without anybody falling through the cracks. So we're going to walk through an example here, and there's a lot of cool little features I want to show you along the way. So remember we talked about Joe. He just became a new children's ministry volunteer. We have this new children's ministry volunteer workflow. At this church, that process to become a new teacher has a few steps. First, there's a phone interview. Next is if they pass the interview, then they're going to get an email with some information about what it means to be a teacher. Next, we're going to order a background check. And once that check clears, we're going to add them to the teaching team inside services so that they can start getting scheduled. Let's just walk somebody through this process. I'm going to show you a bunch of little tips and tricks. So we're going to add somebody. We've got this new volunteer named Annie Romero. I'm going to go ahead and add her to the workflow. So this here, this here is Annie Romero. This is her card, is what we call it. So imagine like if somebody volunteered by filling out a piece of paper and dropping it in the offering plate. You'd have an actual piece of paper, and you might write some notes on it. You might pass it to somebody else on your team to say, hey, here's somebody you need to call. This is like a digital equivalent of that. We call this a card. So this first step on this phone interview is to give her a phone call. So let's just say, I can add notes to it here. There's a history of everything that's happened, and then some tools over here on interacting with this card. So let's say I call her. She doesn't answer. I'm going to leave a note. I'm going to say, I called. She didn't answer. Okay, so I'm going to save that note. So now in this card history is that note. That's there forever for anybody who has access to this workflow. They'll be able to see that note. Okay, so called her, she didn't answer. Let's close the card. Now, this is kind of annoying, right? Like, I want to look at this inbox. I'm an inbox 0 guy. I want this inbox to be my to-do list. Right now, it's telling me I have one card that's ready for me to work on, but I just called her. I can't work on it. I can't call her again, right? So what you can do with that is snooze this card. Let's get it out of here for a little bit. I'm going to click on the snooze button and say, snooze this card for 3 days. In 3 days, remind me about it, and I'll call her again. So what's going to happen is that card is disappeared. 3 days from now, in the morning, I forgot what time, it was 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, something like that, it's going to unsnooze. And then I'll get an email notification that says, hey, Daniel, you've got new cards ready for you to work on in the new Children's Ministry Volunteers workflow. I can click on that, and that'll take me straight to those cards. So the card didn't totally disappear. If I click on here, you can see there's a filter for snooze cards. So there's my snooze card. Let's say Annie called me back, right? She heard the voicemail, called me back. Now I can unsnooze the card, wake it back up. I had a quick conversation with her, and she's ready to serve. I'm just going to save that. Okay, save the note on there. Ta-da, we're done. So we've had the phone interview. I'm going to hit complete step and send her on. Now she's on step 2. Let me show you what it looks like over here. So she's no longer in step 1. If I click on step 2, we see I've actually got 2 cards here. I've got Annie and William. Okay, this step is to send them an email. So I could start by just clicking on Annie's card. There's this little tab here. Oops, I could just type in the info for the email that I want to send. I could just send that right there. That would be a quick way of doing it. But there's a really good chance that on this step, That informational email is a template that I'm probably copying and pasting from somewhere and pasting into that little box. And it's going to be basically the same thing for everybody who gets that email. So we have a better tool for that there. I can select these cards individually. You can even hit select all and select them all. And then click on this email icon. If I click send email, it brings up an email dialog. I could email them off. I could type it in here, or you could even use templates. So we have a welcome to children's ministry template. It's going to fill it out. It's got a little placeholder here. So it's actually going to say, hi, Annie, and then have all the info. When I hit send, it's going to go ahead and shoot those emails out to both William and Annie. Ta-da, easy peasy. So I've sent the email. Let's just say I did send it. Now I'm done with this step. I want to move both of these cards on. Again, I'm going to go back to these bulk actions up here. And one of these actions is to complete the step. So when I hit that, that's going to move both of these cards onto the request background check step. Okay, now something interesting happened here. If you look over here, you see there's 2 cards in the step, but there's no green bubble anymore. That means they're not assigned to me. There are 2 cards here, but they're not my problem. It's somebody else's job, right? If I click on the cards assigned to, I can change that filter. Looks like Emily has 2 cards assigned to her. The reason they were assigned to her is because she is what's called the default assignee on this step. So what's going to happen is when these 2 cards move to this step, the assignment changes. Now it's Emily's turn to take care of them, and she's going to get an email that says, hey, there's some cards ready for you in this workflow. Go check them out. So Emily's our background check person. She does the background checks. So she could use what we call a bulk action here. She can select all. And from this guy right here, she'll get to our bulk action menu. You're going to see this menu real similar in a handful of places around Planning Center. Basically, it's a way to, inside people, to perform an action inside another Planning Center app. So, for example, we could say inside people, we want to order a background check. Choose background check type, and then hit perform action. And when I click on that, that's going to send emails to both William and Annie, and they're going to get the invitation email where they can accept the consent and all that. Okay, so let's just say I did go ahead and send those. They're off. Now it's just a waiting game, right? I forgot to mention when I was talking about Checker. In most places, once Joe has actually accepted those disclosures, you're going to get those results back immediately. There are some counties in the world, especially right now during COVID, where that takes a little longer, 3 to 5 business days. But in all the counties where those records are stored digitally, those background checks are going to come back immediately as soon as he accepts the disclosure. However, he's still got to get the email. He's still got to fill out the form. So we're kind of back into that holding pattern, right? So let's say Emily hits complete step. We're going to move these cards to the check background check status step. Okay, now if I get here, not only are they assigned to Emily still, but they've been automatically snoozed. So that means 3 days from now, Emily's going to get a reminder to come back and double check the background check status, see if Checker has finished, see if they filled out those forms, see if she needs to maybe send a new invitation or give them a phone call. You can edit a step settings, so you can edit who the default assignee is, the auto snooze setting, and also what's called an expected response time. So this is like if a card sits here too long, Emily's going to get a reminder email. It's like, hey, this card's past due. Go take care of it. You can set all that set up here in the edit step settings dialog. Okay, so let's just say Annie's check came in clear. We're going to unsnooze that card. Go find it. Here we go. Should have done it the other way. That's okay. Hit complete step. Ta-da. And now Annie is on the last step of our workflow, which is add to team. So, which is now my job. It's back assigned to me. So we're going to add Annie to the team inside services so that she can start getting scheduled. And those bulk actions are also available right here inside the card. So I'm going to say perform action on Annie. We're going to choose services this time. We're going to say add to team. Service type is going to be the San Diego Contemporary Service. Team, children's ministry, position, teacher. And when I hit perform action, that's going to go ahead and add Annie to that team inside services. Then I hit complete step, and we're done. We're totally done with Annie. She's moved through the workflow. If I go to completed, I can see her card here. This card also lives on her profile, so anytime you click on the workflows tab on her profile, you can see a history of the workflows that she's gone through. If there's ever a question about, did Annie get through the training? Did she get background checked? What happened with that? You can always go through the workflows and go through that history and see exactly what happened and when and who did it. They're a great tool for collaborating with your team and make sure nobody falls through the cracks. I hope by now, as you've seen that, you're starting to see some ideas are clicking, right? You're like, oh man, I got this process that drives me crazy, and it would be awesome to get that digitized. I know this is a tool I wish I had while I was working at church back before Planning Center. Okay, so quick water break. We've talked about details on someone's profile. We've talked about workflows. We're going to move on to something called forms. And forms are a way to collect information from the people in your church and even automatically put them into workflows and perform some of these actions on them. Let me show what those look like. I mean, I bet you can guess what they look like, right? It's a form. So we're going to click on forms, new form. At my church, we have a piece of paper called our Connect card. And every week, well, not in 2020, every week I fill this card out. I put my name on it. And if I have a prayer request, I can write my prayer request on there. If I can update, if I got a new phone number or a new address, I can put that on the card. And then if I'm interested in volunteering or like becoming a teacher or something like that, I can mark that on there and I drop it into the offering plate. And then the church does something with the paper. Hopefully it ends up in the right person's inbox and all the right things happen. From my anecdotal experience, having worked at a church, I know a lot of those cards kind of got lost. Maybe they do at your church. Maybe that resonates with you. I don't know. But moving in digital is going to simplify the process a lot and take a lot of steps out. Let me show you what it looks like. So we're going to rebuild that Connect card here. So I got a new form. I'm going to call it my Connect card and hit save. Okay. So first thing we do on that form is we can collect people's contact information. So I can add a phone number. Their first name, last name, and email address are always collected on these forms. That's how we identify who's who when they fill out the form. We also want them to be able to update their phone number if they want. This is a brand new feature here, and this is the household members field. So from that, when someone fills out this form, they can also add their significant other and their kids to the form, and it will make profiles for them if they don't already exist. That's super cool if you are looking for like pre-registration for check-ins. So somebody could fill out the form on your website before they even come to church. And when they come to check in, all their information is already there. So instead of the first few minutes of your interaction with this brand new person, first time talking to them at a church, instead of asking them 20 questions about birthdays and allergies, you can spend a few minutes like getting to know them on a more personal level because the data is already in your database. And you know it's accurate because they typed it out. So that's the household members field. Okay, we want to be able to remember this prayer request on that Connect card. So I'm going to add a notes field. There we go. I'm going to call this "How can we pray for you?" Okay. Anytime somebody fills out this field, we want to save that information as a prayer request on their profile. Okay. And when they fill that out, that's going to go into that prayer request notification workflow. So you can have a form on your website that collects prayer requests. And every morning, I said workflow, I meant notification. So every morning, all the people on your prayer team are going to get an email with all the new prayer requests that came in on your website yesterday. Okay, now workflows. We want to make sure we get people into workflows here. So I'm going to add a couple different examples. First is this single checkbox. So this first one is going to be called, Today I gave my life to Christ. So this is for new believers. And when they check this box, we're going to add them to the new believers workflow. So that's the workflow like we talked about that walks, somebody gets in contact with them or whatever. There's a more advanced version of these workflow fields. This one's called checkboxes. So this is multiple checkboxes. And this is like, I'd like information about serving in, and we can give them some options. So we could say children's ministry. Okay, and when they fill that out, check that box, they're going to be added to the new children's ministry volunteers workflow. Okay, I'm going to add one more option here, and this is the worship team. Okay, and that will add them to the worship team interest workflow. Save if they check that box. Now, if they do want to be on the worship team, I want to know, what instrument do you play? Okay. That's a super useful question if they're volunteering for the worship team. Kind of weird to ask if they're just dropping in a prayer request, right? Or they're first-time visitors and they're telling you about their kids' birthdays and allergies, and then you ask them what instrument they play, right? We don't want to ask that if they have checked this, I'd like information and serving about the worship team. So I'm going to add a condition to this field. Say, ask this question if I'd like information about serving in is answered as worship team. Save. Ta-da. And that's it. Our form's ready to go. Let me show you what it looks like. It's going to take us back over to Church Center. Let that load there. I'm actually logged in as Joe over here, so it already filled in my name and email address. If I wasn't logged in, it would just have a name and email address field up there. So Joe could fill out his phone number. You know what? Actually, for this example, I need to log out. Okay. Let me go back. Hold up. There we go. Okay. So we're going to fill this form out. Let's say we got a new friend. Bill Smith is showing up, right? And his email is will@cvchurch.co. His phone number is his mobile phone number is 619-555-1234. And he is interested in children's ministry. Why not? Gonna hit submit. Okay, so let's go back over to that form setup here. And when I click on the submissions tab, you can see here's our submission by Mr. Bill Smith. Here's all the information we need. There's a link to the workflow card that was just created in the new worship ministry volunteers workflow. It's that easy. So let me show you a couple more settings and things around here. I'm going to click on the settings tab. There are permissions on these forms. All managers in your Planning Center account can see all your forms all the time because they can be, they're like a portal that people can put information into your database. We wanted to make sure there wasn't a form that somehow was some manager had and it created it and then they disappeared. Maybe they left the church or whatever, and now nobody has access to this form, but it's still out there functional. So all managers have access to all forms all the time. But if I wanted to share this form with somebody else, I could use very similar sharing tools as in other places. So I could add Derek Brown to, now he has access. He's a viewer, but now he has access to this form. So by default, he's a viewer, so he can see the submission, see what's come in on this form. But I could also make him a manager, and that means he can also change the settings on the form. There's a notification list. This is just anytime. You can put in someone's name here. And anytime a new submission comes into that form, they'll get an email about it. You can change the status of this form if you're done with it, but you want to keep the information around, you make it inactive so it won't take any more submissions. You can also embed this form on your website. So instead of sending them to churchcenter.com, there's some directions here, and you can take some code and input that on your website, and then they click a button, and that form will pop up right there on your website. They don't even have to leave. Okay, we have a tool called automations. So again, this is using those bulk actions that we saw on workflows that let you perform actions on profiles, either inside People or in other apps inside Planning Center. It's the same list of actions. you could create an automation here to automatically send them an email when they submit the form. So maybe use an email template, send them an email, or maybe add them to a workflow. The workflow one's a good idea if you have like a form that's like, I'd like to be an usher. They can just put out their information and hit submit. They don't have to also check a workflow checkbox field. Okay, I'm gonna look at that submission one more time. Here's Bill's submission. We're gonna look at this workflow field, or this workflow card that was created. See, he's in the new children's ministry workflow. I'm gonna go look at Bill's profile actually. So this is a brand new profile that was just created inside of Planning Center. So this has that information that we made. I remember we mentioned earlier that this is one way that profiles can get created. I want to point something out here really interesting. And that's that on this profile, we've got a little warning up here that says there's a potential duplicate profile. What's that about, right? I'm gonna click on that. That's gonna take me to our duplicate detector. So Planning Center was pretty smart. It figured out that there's another duplicate that looks or another profile looks really similar to Bill's. There's this William Smith in here. So this is Bill Smith. This is William Smith. They've got the same phone number and same phone number and same email address, different name, but it looks like William decided to use shorthand this time and just call himself Bill on the form. Maybe we have him in as William because that's what he signs his checks with or something. But he actually goes by Bill most of the time. So Planning Center recognized that. It warned us and let us, we can merge these. So I can say merge these profiles. And what's going to happen when I do that, it's going to take all of the information from William's profile. So all of his donations, all of his serving history, all of his team assignments, his group history, all that, and merge that with the new profiles information, and then delete one of them. So you'll only have one left. You can get to this duplicate detector from the dashboard. We actually, down here, you can see all of your potential duplicates, and you can click on View Duplicates, and that's going to show you all the duplicates that Planning Center thinks you have in your database right now. Super cool. We love one value in Planning Center people as we make decisions about it is that your database is only as good as your data. So we try to do things like the duplicate detector to help you keep your data clean and up to date. Okay. So we've talked a lot about individuals, right? We've talked about Joe's profile, Annie's workflow, Bill's form. I want to talk about kind of big picture. Something Planning Center people does is it pulls in, you've seen it interacting with other apps. We added Annie to a team and services. It pulls in data from all these apps and helps you get a kind of a big picture of what's going on in your database as well. So let's talk about lists, okay? This is one of my favorite features. What lists do is they let you find groups of people based on all kinds of crazy activity criteria and then do something with it. So I'm gonna make a new list here. Let's say we've got VBS coming up, okay? And I want to advertise it. VBS is gonna be over Zoom this year, okay, I promise. So we're gonna say, I wanna promote this thing. So I'm gonna go to people, and first of all, who do I need to promote this to? Kids, right? They go to VBS. So let's find all of our kids whose age is, I don't know, it's VBS, maybe 5 and 12 years. It sounds about right to me. So I'm going to hit submit. When I do that, Pico, our friendly robot, is going to go out and find all the kids in our account, all the profiles in our account that are between the ages of 5 and 12. So it looks like I've got 45 kids in my account that match. That's a good start. Let's make this better. I'm going to add another condition here. I only want kids who have been here like this year. I know some of those kids are maybe stale data or they actually live in another state or something. I only want the kids who have actually checked in somewhat recently. So I'm going to say, we're going to pull some data out of check-ins for this list. I'm going to say check-ins, attendance, attended any event, any location, anytime in the last, let's call it 6 months. Okay, so now Pico is going to go to people and pull that list of 45 kids. Also going to go to check-ins and say, who are all the kids who have checked in the last 6 months? It's going to look at the overlap of those two lists and give me the results. That took us down to 35 kids. So 35 kids, 5 and 12, have checked in the last 6 months. Let's make this even better. I know that some of those kids have already registered for VBS, so I don't need to promote this to them anymore, right? So let's find those kids. We'll go to registrations, events, registered for a specific event, Vacation Bible School, okay? But I don't want to include those kids. I want to remove those kids from my list. So I'm going to switch from include to exclude. Now, anybody who has already registered won't show up on my list. Submit. We're going to go from 35 down to, I don't remember what it lands. We'll get there in a second. But Pico's going up, there we go, 31. So Pico went to registrations, check-ins, and people. Got the overlap. Imagine a big Venn diagram, right? So Pico figured that out. We're down to 31. We're really close. We know who the kids are that we want at church, but these aren't the people we actually want to promote to. First of all, let me change this. Let me give this thing a name. I can name my list, say, VBS promo list. That default description is getting a little out of hand up there, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to go to rules. And I don't actually want to promote this to those kids. I want to promote this to their parents, right? So we can say, I want my list to include the primary contacts of those kids, which is going to be their adults, an adult in their household. So remember, we're back to households earlier on. It's going to use households. If it finds an adult that's the primary contact in their household, now that adult is on the list. If they aren't in a household for some reason, it's just the kid in the database by themselves, it'll still list the kid. So there we go. Here's our list of 24 people. These are the people that I need to promote VBS. I need to send promotions to. How do I do that? I could send them an email. I could just type in an email right here. I could use an email template. I could also perform a bulk action on these people. So a VBS promo list isn't a great example of this, but you could use a bulk action to find anybody who hasn't, if your list was finding anybody who hasn't been here in the last year, and maybe they haven't donated, attended, been to a group, had a prayer request, they haven't done any activity, you could set their profile inactive to hide it away. You could change membership statuses with that bulk action. There's all kinds of things you could do there. Okay, let's look at the list settings. In here, we have those visibility options again, very similar to the visibility options we've seen all over the place this morning. We can add some a campus and a category. Those are essentially folders to help you organize your list. We have a MailChimp integration as well. So you could sync this list over to MailChimp and then go to MailChimp and build. If you use MailChimp, they have like great tracking tools and campaign building tools and all that. You could use all of their tools with the data from Planning Center as a direct integration there. You could also have this list automatically refresh. So I'm going to save this list, keep it around, but it's going to, it's important to know that when Pico goes out and gets that data, the data on this list stays the same until you refresh it and it goes and gets fresh data. So you could have this list automatically refresh every single night, so it's always up to date. And you combine that auto refreshing with automations. So again, we go back to those bulk actions. We could have a list that it refreshes every day, and anytime there's new people on this list that match our criteria, it's going to send the email, the VBS promotional email, to them automatically. It's all tied together. It's super cool. And that is everything we need to talk about with lists. So they are really a way to tie all the Planning Center together into one cohesive. So it's not just a whole bunch of apps, but we're like one cohesive system that help you understand what's going on and care for your people. Okay, so we've covered people's details. We've covered viewing their activity, following up with people, using forms, lists. So that really covers all of the key pillars of what's going on inside this app. And hopefully by now, we're talking for an hour, hopefully your gears are turning, man. I hope you see some ways that Planning Center people can help you and your church. And the great thing about it is that it's free, right? It's like literally no strings. It's totally free. So you don't even have to go sell any board members on using it, right? Just sign up, put some stuff in there, start messing around. Maybe try getting a few of your team members on it. If they start to like it, you're going to see that people find that it's easy to use and powerful and has all the things they need, and they're just going to gravitate to starting to use it. And the next thing you know, you're going to be using it, and it won't even cost you anything. So just go, if you're not using it yet, go start. I really highly recommend it. Again, this video is available, planningcenter.com/university. And from there, you can sign up to also see all of our other classes. There's a class on every one of our apps. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you and yours are all safe and well during these crazy times. And have a great day. Thank you.